What's up, everybody? Today we have with us Jona Tejada. He is a cinematographer, filmmaker, missionary, and guitar player. He has worked in professional music studios and has been commissioned to do weddings, sport games, music videos, and documentaries. He has traveled to do mission work around Central and West Africa, Central America, India, and Nepal. So welcome, Jona.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Fun.
We, if you guys are watching us on YouTube, we do have a venue change. We hope you like it. And we hope it's
great.
Homey.
It is a home.
It's comfy.
Right? It technically is. And hopefully gives that homey vibe. But yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's get right to it. I mean, I've seen your video work and it's outstanding.
Oh,
it's
stop.
beautiful.
You're gonna make me blush.
The first time I actually saw your video work was for your wedding.
Yeah,
Really?
Jonah did my
man.
wedding, and I cry every time I see that video.
I get chills every time I see your social media edit. I'm not gonna lie. I get the
right.
chills.
That was so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It was so good. I was like, man, I this is like a movie.
And
like,
you know, when I was picking out the music, I wanted something very dramatic, but I didn't want to get a text from him the next day saying, "Hey, the song is perfect, the video is perfect, but it's a little too depressing. Could you maybe, find something happy?" I get texts like that sometimes,
I guarantee you.
I think like a filmmaker, I want it to match how sophisticated or elegant the cinematography camera movement is. And, but that song is so perfect. Sometimes I watch it just for the music,
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. But so how did
That was
you
a great
get
night.
how did you get started in your video work? Tell us how did
It's
it go?
funny. What led to my video work was the music industry. It was music. So right out of high school, went straight to Pierce College. I was going for psychology and a minor in music. And but about a year in, I get a random call from a friend who got me a interview with a record producer right in Studio City. So then I show up to get hired on the spot. I start less than a few months later, which is kind of weird. I like to think of it as a probation period, but I had started months later and it really took off from there. My first day was at Universal Music Group in Santa Monica, right on the Boulevard. And it was gorgeous, multi-million-dollar studio. Never forget it. Legends stood in that studio to record hits. And I'm just this little scrawny. At that time, I was scrawny. After this quarantine weight,
I know, right? How old were you during this time?
I was still 18. Yeah, I was still 18. So I was always the youngest cat in every single studio session. I was a fly on the wall, if you will. But it was great. That's where it started. That was my foot in the door, so to speak. And I wanted to be a studio musician, but after seeing what these pros can do, I was like, no way.
That's weird to hear because so Andrew and I both play guitar, but bro, your skills are on a whole nother level. Like
no, that's nice.
You
of
should.
you. Thank
this
you.
guy can sweep and like I'm impressed. So for you to say something like,
dude, it's insane the amount of talent I've seen. Guitarists that have played for Michael Jackson.
wow,
The keyboard players that have toured with Usher. All of these good friends now. And saxophone players, and I remember you hauling that saxophone around.
I actually met Usher. Yeah, we're cool.
That's awesome.
Not really.
That's
but
great.
I don't think he remembers me, but I used to work somewhere and he came by.
Cool.
We met, and it was cool.
That's funny. That's great. That's LA for you.
That's LA.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it was a lot of fun, but it was really humbling also to see the tremendous talent. All of these people, and all of them have a foundation as far as their music background in ministry. They all had started in church.
Wow.
It was insane. It was like almost 9 out of every 10 musicians or vocalists we were hiring for like just background stuff, that they had a background in ministry, which was really cool. That was inspiring.
Hey, well, this is why we started Saved Artists.
Yeah.
I mean, we all start in church, and it's possible to make
To
a
make a
career
career.
out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've seen it firsthand. And We were working with huge labels. We were with Universal Music Group, Atlantic Capital, let's see, with Motown Records. So that was a great
Is Atlantic
adventure.
Capital, is that Capitol Records? That's based out of Atlanta, or did it
No,
change?
no. Atlantic, they're here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
confusing it with
No,
another
and
one.
Capitol Records, you see it right off of the 101,
101,
right there.
yeah.
Yep, legendary building.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was confusing it.
Started there and wanted to write music. We hired professional songwriters responsible for the hits we hear on the radio, while you're stuck in traffic on the 405 or in a Starbucks. All of these legends, they're all writers behind the scenes that are writing these hits in like 3 hours, or 6-hour blocks that they're booked for. I'm like, it takes me days to write a song, months even, I can't do it in the studio session, so that's not for me. But then I noticed the behind the scenes work was for me, the administrative stuff, managing studios, booking these people, invoices, handling all that stuff. That was great. I loved that stuff, which led for me going from a personal assistant to an executive for a production company. And that was my first milestone, honestly, getting hired and working my way up, being my former boss's, that record producer's right-hand man, And great learning experience, because there were times where I jumped in to play guitar for some tracks that
Really?
labels were looking for, And it was just simple rhythm stuff, but it was just cool because I would sit there and be like, dude, this song is going to be sold for 6 digits. And one day it might be on the radio, and that would be the coolest thing,
Like,
to hear
I
that.
played that
Yeah,
song.
it was so magical to me at that time. Now it's just like, that's cute, But it was great. It was really cool. It was also really humbling to see how it was very strongly based on it. It's a who you know basis. I was always surrounded by graduates who were pursuing doctorates and stuff in in business and all this stuff. But, other cats were getting hired because they just knew the person. They knew a couple of people. They knew the right people to network their way in. If there's any advice I could give, if there is someone who plays music and wants their foot in the door in the industry, it's definitely who you know. You network
get to know
like crazy.
people, right?
Yep, network like crazy.
And it's
make
almost
friends.
like a given. Like you kind of can't be a jerk.
No, you cannot. You cannot. And that is also very prominent in the music industry.
Really?
Like many others. There are so many other songwriters and producers that we definitely did not work with, again, just because of, lack of manners, I guess, to say in a nice way, or, maybe they're just very particular about things, not to judge too harshly, but definitely maintaining a good character. It's really helpful for others too. It'll help them remember you also.
True,
I've been on a set shooting a commercial where I've had the actors go up to me. It's like, dude, give me your number. Let's keep in touch. I love working with you. You keep the energy going. You're positive. I shot with a guy with a red helium 8K camera, $80,000 camera last week. But he was a jerk, but I like you. And I'm just like, okay, cool. All right. Well, I thought I was just doing what everyone's supposed to do, maintaining a good, a healthy work environment like that, positive one.
And what would you say, just going back into that networking, because a lot of times today it's very transactional, right? It's very like,
Sure.
Hey, I know you,
Sure.
You know me, or I just want to get to know you because I know you can get me in.
Yeah.
And, I think it's very easy to make it a transactional base versus an actual relationship base.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think relationship, it might not be an immediate per se, like outcome for it, but long term, I think it would definitely pay off. Like, what would you say towards?
No, for sure. It's very hard to keep a balance, because I can say that I thank God that I had a huge handful of friends I have known since middle school and high school. We crossed paths in the music industry, which was wild because we'd see each other in the same music studio or the same red carpet after party, or same, event at a label, and it was like, hey, dude, like, how are you? Like, it's crazy that you're here, you know? And then we're meeting people just because we know each other, and that was helpful for more humble, meaningful, positive relationships in that work environment. But then you do run into stuff that's like super transactional, where it's like, it's kind of up to you, you know? It's kind of up to you. I've been in plenty of situations where I've been able to gauge the situation, and I'm able to say, you know what? I don't mind that it's transactional. I know where I can point this person in the right direction. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I might not ever get a thank you or see them again, but you know, I'm doing my part, you know? And you really have to be good, develop a discipline in gauging stuff like that, because I was naive in the beginning, where I was just saying yes to everything, you know, or giving to everyone. And it was kind of discouraging, where you just pour yourself out, and then you're like, hey, no one's calling me back, or hey, no one's texting me back, or hey, these 20 people that I helped, you know, aren't helping back. Not that you want to expect anything in return, but so I would definitely make sure that you develop a discipline in gauging your networking process like that. You know, it could be really helpful. Yeah, and it'll save you heartache, save you some, you know, situations that could go really south, especially if it involves money. You know, you always want to be careful, always want to protect yourself.
That's true.
Yeah.
And how did your studio, like, how did you being in that studio lead to, you know, your video work, and, you know, when did you pick up a camera?
Yeah, sure. So we were a production company. We were running for a couple of years, and we were doing great things at the time. And one day we were shooting for a client that flew all the way from London, and my boss goes, Jonah, I double booked myself. I can't shoot this video. You're going to have to do it. And I don't want to get this other guy, because honestly, I think you can handle it. I was scared, but also excited.
Oh, those are the best moments.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you know any like camera terminology?
No way, dude.
The triangle aperture?
No way. No way. I knew nothing. I just had a Canon Rebel T3i.
Oh yeah, that's what we all started there.
Yeah, one kit lens, you know. I don't think I even had a mic. Well, I mean, I didn't need one. It was a music video, and just a janky tripod, you know. Maybe a little like cute rig to hold, and just make me look cool at that time. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was jumping into, but it was really exciting. And I did it, and I had fun doing it. We traveled all over Los Angeles to shoot it, and the client was in love with it. If I looked at it now, I'd probably throw up.
Yep.
But
that's
you know,
all of us.
Yeah.
Yep. The first work is always the worst for some
Yeah.
reason.
So, but the client loved it regardless. And, you know, I still get messages from that client every couple of years saying, man, I hope you're still doing great. You know, I still think about the first time we've worked with each other. Let me know if you're ever back in California, or if you're ever in England, et cetera, et cetera. They were great friends outside of work too. That was fun. And that was my first time, you know. And after I did that, the only education I had as far as directing / cinematography was just probably 18 years of watching movies and behind the scenes stuff.
So you love movies?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Oh man, watching movies is probably my biggest hobby. I absorb everything, you know. I can't watch movies like a normal person anymore.
I know. I totally understand
You know?
you. Like
You know
film
that?
school kind of like ruined my life in a way, because now I can't just watch for pure entertainment. It's like that lighting, man.
Dude,
I don't know, man.
Seriously, exactly. I'm probably the worst person to watch movies with. You can ask my girlfriend, who, you know, I'm every now and then you'll just hear me give commentary like, wow, that was a beautiful shot.
Have you watched
know,
anything good lately?
You know, I don't. Yeah, Dunkirk left a great impression on
Have
me.
you seen that one, Dunkirk?
I haven't
it's,
seen that one.
Nolan, right?
Yeah,
That guy is.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most sophisticated war movies I've ever.
Wasn't it like what really separated from the rest was Hans Zimmer's music it's not, I don't even know if it's music. It just gives you anxiety. You're like, what's like happening?
I know. He does a good job at that.
Yeah, I love Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. But anyway, that first opportunity in the music business, we landed a huge deal working with Justin Timberlake and his manager. That was like the bread and butter of our company. After less than a few years, we had to terminate that contract. Things were taking too long. And at that time, we terminated that contract because it was our bread and butter. The company tanked and we all got laid off. And yeah, it was devastating. You know, you went from being backstage watching Timberlake, you know, rehearse for his next set and, you know, bowling with his manager to, well, I don't have any more work for you. You know, I'm sorry. But my boss still to this day, we keep in touch. We're friends now.
Did you ever meet Justin's band?
Yeah.
The Tennessee
yeah,
kid?
Yeah,
You know
yeah. The guitarist. I don't remember his name. And the drummer. We worked with them.
Oh, really? I know the bass player actually came from a church as well.
Cool.
I think he was the music director.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's the music director.
Amazing.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And the guitarist, he was maybe fiddling on a hollow body backstage, and it caught my eye because I went through a hollow body stage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I was just like, we talked about it, and then he has a background in classical music. The dude can shred. Awesome guy.
Yeah, he's a good musician.
Justin's mom is super sweet and looks just like him. They both looks just like him. Really sweet. That was a great time. That was a really great time. And at that time that the company went bankrupt, I had just spent about $5,000 on camera equipment. And when I got laid off, I was like, what am I going to do now? I got all this stuff. Like, what am I going to do? All of this was for the company, you know? And I was kind of glad that all of that happened because I wouldn't be where I am today, you know? And I was referred to shoot a birthday, a Sweet 16, because they just liked my Instagram videos that I had posted at that time, just messing around, just traveling stuff. And that one event led to getting the rest of the year, almost every single weekend booked, without advertising, without marketing, all word of mouth, you know? Wow. So that was awesome. And I have no formal education, didn't go to film school. I honestly just study everything off of online on the internet. Off of behind the scenes, watching panels, also in like workshops, attending workshops online. That's super helpful. During quarantine, I watched free workshops that Sundance were giving and other production companies of professionals giving good insight and advice, you know? And that's how I jumped into cinematography right out of the music industry. It was very, very weird how that happened. But I'm glad it happened. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think now, you know, that was kind of the beginning stage of your career, if you will. And that has probably shifted you in a different direction too when it comes to just your cinematography. Like you now just do documentaries, right? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. And then after a couple of years of dipping my toes in everything, I've worked with the NBA during the Olympics. Here at the Staples Center, I've kept doing weddings and other events as a side small business. I started doing local sports, and then I got a call for my first gig for a mini documentary series in Culver City. And that was the first time. And it was a great learning experience because, again, I didn't know what I was doing jumping into that. I was scared. Just thinking about it makes my hands sweaty. You know, friend of mine, good friend of mine with more industry experience than I have. He goes, dude, I trust you. I need you for these 2 days to cover for me as camera operator. You're also running sound, you know, just go and do what you do. I trust you. You're going to be just fine. And I went in, I did my thing. I was like, hey, I like this. It never appealed to me to do documentary stuff because it never appealed to me as far as like how it was shot, you know? But then I started watching stuff like Chef's Table on Netflix.
Oh, you're so right.
It's so beautiful.
That one, there's another one. So I don't know if you've heard of Masterclass.
Yes, I have.
So these guys, I guess they're not documentaries, but they're kind of like classes. But there's a Gordon Ramsay one there that I watched, and just what they do is
It's
fantastic.
great.
But yeah, Chef's
Yeah.
Table, and there's some new up and coming documentaries that, because back then it was very guerrilla style, right? Like you
Yeah,
just kind of
definitely.
point and shoot,
Yep.
and but now it's very cinematic.
Mhm.
They have like very beautiful shots.
Yeah, and I love that. I'm a huge fan of that, man. I'm a snob for that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
honestly. And less than a couple of years ago, I started working for this Christian nonprofit in Keystone, South Dakota. And um, when I had initially started with them, I saw that they could use so much more video than they had, and so much a higher caliber of video than they already had. And I jumped in immediately, talked to leadership there and some staff members, and I'm just like, dude, I can do this. Let me show you what I can do. I'd love to partner with you guys. But then months after that, I came onto staff, and they kind of just said, "All right, you're leading that now, so do what you want to do." And traveled to my first trip out with them was India and Nepal, and that was a great test run to start shooting stuff. What the nonprofit was doing there, that was awesome. Then my own stuff in Central America, and then with a different nonprofit in Uganda. That was a lot of fun. Every trip has been more and more educational on what exactly to do and what not to do, as a filmmaker and missionary.
Right.
A lot of fun though, and I'm super excited to, when things with all of this COVID stuff calms down, to really allow me to go back out there in the field, because I really want to go back out and have a better plan and better shot list, I guess I can say, for this documentary that this nonprofit wants to finally put together. At first, it was just short stuff as recap videos, promotional stuff for social media and website stuff. Now it's, no, Jonah, we need to talk to production companies and distributors.
Wow.
So we need to put something together very polished, so that, and it's not just for us. We really want to expand within the ministry. So, and that's what we're currently doing. That's where I'm at currently. Every time I drive around the Valley or LA, I'm always like, hey, I've been to that studio, or hey, I shot something here. It's a lot of fun. But now I'm able to step on foreign soil, every year. Well, before all of this happened, I was every year, and for the past couple of years, and it's been transformational.
I saw your some of the highlights you put together in Africa, and I thought it was beautiful.
Oh, thanks. It was
great
beautiful
job.
there, man. It was very beautiful. We were in West Africa before all of this for about 4.5 months. And I want to go back. I want to go back to shoot even more and country hop a little bit even. And yeah, I love it. I'm addicted to just running out there with my camera. I don't think I ever want to stop. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what do you use to shoot your films?
I have GH4s. I'm actually currently camera shopping. I'm looking to take a huge step with gear. My GH4s, they were revolutionary. They were the first internal 4K camera to come out. Not to brag for
No, they changed the
Panasonic,
game for
because
sure. They changed the
Panasonic's not
game.
sponsoring us
We're not
or
being
me.
sponsored.
Okay, but I can swear by Panasonic so far, because it has its limitations. Don't get me wrong, but it was a great workhorse to get started from. I'm currently camera shopping. The problem is, every time I say, you know what, I kind of want this camera, something else comes out.
Did you see the new Canon R6?
Yes, I saw that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, not just that, but the other C something, the new cinema camera just came out with.
Saw
It's
that one
like,
too.
dude, come on, slow down. Before it was once a year they came out with a model. Now it's like once every few months.
Yeah.
I wanted the Panasonic what is it, S1H, the full frame that they have, but man, it's just like, I'm ready to jump into what they consider industry standard, into the 6K, 8K realm. You know,
like the Alexa Minis or
yeah,
the
yeah.
Ursa Mini.
I was ready to jump into that, but it kind of looks like the smaller cameras are starting to catch up to those giants,
Yeah.
to Reds and Alexas, you know. So I might as well just be a little bit more patient. Yeah, I will own a Sony eventually, you know, but they overheat.
We're all
I-
kind of like
I-
refusing to switch, even though we know we're eventually gonna do Sony, go with Sony.
I mean, I started shooting Nikon, and then
We've all
eventually-
been there. Don't be ashamed.
I know,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah, it's okay.
And then I moved over to Sony, and ever since, I can't go back to anything else. But one thing I do want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about
Sure thing.
is actually talking about your faith.
Okay.
And talking about your faith through your journey.
Sure thing.
Because I mean, I'm sure that the music industry and even the like film industry has times where you might be struggling with maybe like, hey, is this ethical for what I'm doing or my faith or my beliefs? So if you don't mind just chiming in, like, have you ever had a situation where you were kind of like, I don't know if I feel comfortable in this particular situation,
For sure.
how I should kind of control that situation
for
or
sure.
move my way around.
For sure. I don't want to play the name dropping game any more than I have the past couple of minutes, but there were rappers and artists that would show up with their entire posse, you know, entire posse, and it was just a studio session or recording session or songwriting session. It would turn into basically a house party. And there were moments where I'm just like, Sean, let me go home early. Let me go home early, please. Yeah. You know, and he would get it too, because he was a pastor's kid, you know? So his story is great. You know, he should be sitting in this seat. You know? Real quick, his dad was a member of the his mom was from the South. She was a pastor's daughter. His dad was a Black Panther, right? Okay, and they weren't allowed to date because segregation was still very much a thing. So they had to date in secrecy. And they started dating. He left the party and eventually married her and became a pastor himself. They had a lot of children, and my older boss, former boss, was one of the children. And he grew up as a musician in the church, played all sorts of stuff, keys, guitar, and but also was a great vocal instructor and coach. And so he had that background. He totally got it. He knew. He stuck it out better than I did. But he was like, dude, you're young, you know, and some of this stuff might make you uncomfortable. Eventually, you got kind of grow callous to a few things, you know, not to everything, but to a few things. The naive stuff kind of melts off, and you're just like, you know what? There are ways to go about certain things, and a lot of those ways that I chose to do was either go home early or, you know, we would have studio rules, you know, no alcohol, no et cetera, narcotics. We had a limit to how many people could be in the studio. There were times where I was definitely tested, but I always thought to myself, you know what? I don't want to make the wrong decision right now because I just got this job, or I plan on being in this industry very long. I don't want to be fired for making the wrong choice. Integrity was huge, and it was definitely tested in that realm because, you know, you're 1 second you could be in just a very, very fun setting recording a song, you know, very, very standard recording session. Next, you're watching one of your childhood heroes with, you know, some extra company being a little too friendly, and you're like, I don't see anything right now. Yikes, you know, it's weird. It's weird. But then you always run into pros that are very pro, and who have a high level of like discipline too. They come in, they do their thing. They're not there to mess around, you know. But it's fun too. Still, they know how to have fun, when to have fun, we've had tons of people be laid back. It's always something that's going to come up. You're never going to be able to avoid it. You're always going to run into a situation where your integrity is tested, or you really do have to make a decision and be bold enough to make the right decision, even if it means burning bridges. There have been some situations where I'm like, you know what, I don't need to be in there, so I'm not going to. It's not necessary for me. I booked the session. I can be doing work somewhere else in the office, or I can be, if they need me, I'll be in there. It's always helpful when you have brothers and sisters along your side too, that also totally get it, and they're there to just uplift you and encourage you. That's always really helpful.
Your inner circle, if you will, right?
Yeah,
the people that
exactly.
you see. And do you still like keep in constant communication with them? Like, how much of a role did those peers have in your life during that time where it's like, hey, iron sharpens iron, and kind of one of those things where it's kind of, I think, kind of missed now, where it's like,
it's true.
People get offended very easily, and it's like, we're not trying to offend you or anything. It's just, I want you to be better.
Sure thing. It's cool because all that inner circle at that time has had so much growth that, like, talking to them now, they're completely different people, man. Completely different people. And it's almost kind of silly to me how much money we were making and how naive and immature we were with all that. We felt like we were on top of the world. And it's really easy to, because you're making an offensive amount of money. You're hanging out with people you grew up watching on MTV. You're in the music business. It's Los Angeles. It felt like, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want, and you'd feel invincible. But talking to all of the people from that circle now, all of the producers, songwriters, and assistants and interns that we had, they're so grown, so mature, and so much more wise. And them too, they look back and they're like, yeah, those were good times, but also very immature, stupid ones, And I'm really grateful that things didn't get too out of hand or crazy. Mm-hmm. It was always just, I was very good at crowd control. So my boss had given me that role at that time, because he always noticed I wasn't the one getting crazy like everyone else. I was kind of on the side, like, this isn't me, I'm here because it's my job. People are having too much fun. Let's get back to work. So he always gave me that role to really make sure we the facilitator role, if you will, right, making sure we were on task. Yeah.
As Christians, we're called to preach the gospel, right? Most of the time in these industries, especially in the artistic industries and in Hollywood, it's not always the most blunt thing that we can do, right? Would you say that it's possible to be in music studios as a even Hollywood as a cinematographer and still be that light?
Oh, for sure. There's no excuse. For sure. As a matter of fact, it blows my mind how crazy it is that how many people we were working with, even artists that we see walking red carpets, seeing on magazines, how all of them have grown up in a church, had gone to church or started playing music in a church. It was always so mind-blowing to me. And at that time, it was just always cool because I had a boss that was Christian, and was also in the music business. And not going to say he was perfect. I'm not going to claim to be myself either. But it was great to know that it felt a little safer, if you will. And not many people will have that security, that kind of security. And I will say security because he did protect me from a couple of things. Where he would say, you know what? I'll take this one, or I'll take this task, or you can take this one. He really looked out for me like a father did with the son, and not very many people. That's hard to come by. It's really hard to come by. As a matter of fact, the one person I can definitely will always vouch for is probably Lenny Santiago. He is Jay-Z's right-hand man. And he was the most humbling guy humble guy we ever worked with. The dude was just real, so real, genuine. He helped us out a lot with a lot of the business. He fought for us.
And I bet he was a beast, huh?
He
At
was.
what he does.
Yeah, he was. And it's every time I see him in the news, you know, he's working with Rock Nation, with Jay-Z, doing all this stuff. I'm always like, yes, you deserve it. Good. I'm cheering for you. You know, he helped us out a lot. And it's so awesome because even a lot of record label executives were believers too. So that was always great. It was really helpful. Every now and then you'll get a wolf in sheep's clothing, but that's normal.
That's
I think
normal.
it's interesting how, you know, we start in church and we see professionals and we're almost kind of like, that's so, either we think that's so far-fetched as skill wise, or like, man, I'm a Christian and I'm in church and I can never act like, I would never be able to work there, maybe because of the environments that they place or whatnot. But it's incredible that a lot of them.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, if you're too worried about your skill set, then put in the hours.
Yep.
Put in the hours. You know, I played until my fingers bled, and you guys probably have too. And we've all had moments where like, man, I'm not going to touch this thing for another week. But then, you know, within the next couple of hours, you're just on your couch, just strumming away or just fiddling.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Like I don't consider myself to be that good, but the skill that I built, even though I've played for a good amount of years, like, you know, any kind of good that I did have came from this season that it was like 3 months, I want to say, where that's all I did. Like I watched videos, YouTube, and just practice and scales. And I was like, imagine what someone can accomplish by doing those 3 months, but years.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what they live and breathe, and they put in the work and the time. And that's why you hear people, you know, like who are pros, like they're like, well, I, you know, just play 10 to 14 hours a day.
And you think it's so absurd. But I was like, you play, how long do you practice? 12 hours?
I know. Like, I know. Like, that always, I was just like, nah, no, that's too much, dude. Like 3 hours for me got me to, you know, just be at the level that I was content with. But honestly, I'm not even content now. I want to learn more, you know.
Yeah.
I think, pushes you to be even better and develop more skill. It's and more discipline. That's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, we're living in very uncertain times. This is a weird year. No
2020
doubt.
is a weird year.
For sure.
How has COVID affected, you know, your ministry, your career? Has it affected it?
Yeah, it definitely has. As far as career, all of my shoots that I had pending coming back from Africa just shut down completely, you know? And so that went all right out the window. They've slowly have been, you know, coming back, but with proper precautions in place. And as long as certain restrictions are lifting or new ones are allowing work to be made possible, that I'm very grateful for that. Ministry-wise, let's see, I live in the town of Keystone, South Dakota, about 2 miles from Mount Rushmore, right? Little town,
nice.
Minor town in the middle of mountains, the beautiful Black Hills. And that little town gets students on J1 visas from all over the world to come and work in the town, okay? And our ministry, the Keystone Project, are based right there also in the town. We hire those internationals, and we're able to live the gospel out side by side with them because they work with us every day at the hotel that we own there. So they're working as housekeepers, and, you know, we're engaging with them. We're learning from them. We're developing relationships with them. We're eating meals with them. We're listening to their stories, you know. They're always so fascinated about how we live here or what things are like here. You know, we were ministering to a guy from China a couple years ago, my first year there, and he was so fascinated with America. He was just, I just want to learn more of your culture, of American people, you know. We invited him over for a movie night, and we asked him, Kaiser, what do you want to watch today? He's like, I want to watch a movie about America. I looked down, and the first movie I saw was The Patriots.
Such a great Mel Gibson just knocks it out of the
It was
park.
perfect timing. And I just looked out around the room to the other guys. I'm like, guys, come on.
This is God-given. I mean,
it might not be the greatest movie or most clean movie, but he did want to, watch something about America, etc. So we minister to all of these internationals. Every now and then we get an international that's never heard of Jesus, and that is mind-blowing to me. Think about that for a second. There are still people on this planet with the technology that we have, that with transportation that we have, that have never heard of the name Jesus. And it's, how cool is that you get to be the first person to present that to them, and not just to speak it, but to live it out. Because in 3 months, that's all you have in that town, in that little tourist town. They're working every day. You're working every day. Some days you work with them. And when you're off, you're with them, serving them, loving them. You're showing them Jesus. And you're getting to preach the gospel of the kingdom, and it's great. But because of the pandemic, that program was cut off. So we didn't have any J1 visas come into the town this year to work. So all of us missionaries are looking at each other like, well, okay, guess that's okay. We're going to have to figure things out, re-strategize just like everyone else in the world right now, figure it out and be patient, and do ministry differently. And it's definitely affected us, because that was our life. We would go out, just walk down the street and see someone from Cameroon or Jamaica that's working at that restaurant down the street, or right across the street to the cafe where you have someone from Czechoslovakia or Russia. We had people from all over, from Africa, all over from Europe and South America, and every now and then also Central America and Mexico. And they're all gone. They weren't here this year. And it was kind of heartbreaking, because that's why we're there. 2 to 3 million people travel every year to see Mount Rushmore, estimated. And that's huge, because, the Great Commission says, go to the nations to make disciples. Dude,
they're coming to you.
They're coming to us. All right. So we just have to step outside and do our thing, which is great.
That's actually a very good tactic, where you are somewhere, or you position your organization or church or ministry at a location where it is high in tourism.
It's really cool. Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah, it's definitely affected us, but we've been able to figure things out, and we work very closely with whoever we run into, and we still we have found plenty of other ways to serve, with proper precautions in place. So that's been helpful. And then as far as work goes, same thing. I'm engaging in work, but it's differently now, But I think every industry, every single industry, it has been affected for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
1,000%. And I mean, you shared your story. Your story has been amazing, by the way. Just seeing what you've done in the amount of time that you.
There are greater stories out there.
Yeah. But how much of your success would you say is from, just the hard work that you've put in, or how much would you say that your success is actually, God's blessing in your life?
It's always a very difficult thing to discern, to gauge, because it is my opinion that you can still be blessed and the Lord not be with you. It could have been just the work of your flesh. It could have just been you, It could have just been you meeting the right person, saying the right things, being there on time, making a good impression, and then getting that salary or that dream job, that position that you've always wanted, and still give thanks to God. But, he's probably like, come on, you did that all on your own, you silly goose, Yeah. But for me personally, I have definitely come across so many opportunities where I know it was just me. Why? Because I was able to, I always just jumped the gun. I went for it. And that's never a terrible thing. But if you're a man or woman of faith, you eventually learn to wait. You eventually learn to listen to his voice. For you pray for confirmation. Do you feel peace with this, or is this for selfish gain? Are you just looking to store up more treasures in your heart? Do you just want more money? Why do you want more money? Is there something deeper that you need to work through, etc.? I definitely can admit there have been tons of awesome opportunities that I've had, that may have been just because I walked the walk and talked the talk, like I was trained to in the film industry or the music industry by peers and mentors, but I definitely think that the best way to tell the difference was that I know there were opportunities that only God could have made possible or could have done only. I could not have, made it happen, which is pretty awesome. I think that's a good way to really tell the difference between the two. And it does happen. We're young, or at least 4 of us here in the room, including our camera operator.
Right.
And we will go through seasons where maybe we're making a couple decisions where it's just us, but you can tell if the Lord is with you. Why? Because you personally know about your relationship between you and Him, and how deep that relationship is, and how committed you are to obeying Him. But I learned to bless the name of the Lord, whether the situation went south or things were great. That's also an awesome discipline to learn. Yes, there have been times where I definitely have had huge successes, that I knew that only God could have made that possible. Other successes where I knew I had made that possible because it was easy enough to be just me, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited about seeing more of your work.
Awesome. Yeah.
Hearing more of your story develop, and we're both greatly inspired by the work that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Especially overseas. It just shows us that there are people out there who care. And who are willing to put in the work, and
yeah, even with everything going on,
right? But where can people find you, find your work, and because
sure thing.
Want to share.
You can find me on Instagram. That's Instagram.com/Jona _Tejada, Jona _Tejada. You find me on Twitter too. You'll be disappointed by just news articles that I repost there. That's just my morning paper, honestly. My Vimeo account is the same. It's vimeo.com/Jona Tejada, no underscore there. You can also find me on the ministry's website. A lot of my stuff will be posted there at keystoneproject.org. It definitely have a lot planned up that is put on pause because of the pandemic, but I'm very eager to get back out there. Very eager. I'm even to document the story of everything going on now, or how the pandemic has even made documentary filmmaking less accessible right now, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jona. We really appreciate your time, and we're excited. We're excited for what the future holds in store for you.
I'm excited for you guys. I'm glad you're doing this. You got yourself another fan. I'll be listening.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I hope to see you guys again sometime in the future.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. My pleasure.